Hello, and we have amazing crypto news for you today. Two ETFs launched today, the DOGE ETF and the XRP ETF, and they both massively surpassed expectations when it comes to volume. Now, not so much TVL, but volume. And these were launched under the 1940s Act. And they don't have staking, but the amount of volume, XRP got 37 million and Doge got about 17 million. Now, regular ETFs do less than $1 million for the first 24 hours of trading. So while these aren't as big as the Bitcoin or Ethereum ETFs, because those didn't actually launch this year, they are like among the top ETFs this year. They're both top 5. XRP was number 1. I think Doge is like number 2 or number 3 in terms of volume. Now, I think those are the only two spot crypto ETFs that have actually launched this year outside of the various Ethereum ETFs in the United States. Not the first Ethereum ETF, that was last year, and the first Bitcoin ETF was also last year. But that goes to show that there is a lot of demand for altcoin ETFs. Like XRP can say like, well, it's the biggest coin outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's a really strong, like almost cultish community behind it, so you could understand that. But Doge was almost half that volume at 17 million, over 17 times the normal ETF volume. So that goes to show you that it's just not one or two coins. There is demand for the entire crypto altcoin ETF market, and that could most definitely boost up prices. So novel ETFs tracking XRP and Dogecoin have surpassed analyst trading volume expectations, together seeing 54 million in trades in their debut, which is massively incredible. Investors piled into the first Dogecoin and XRP exchange-traded funds in the US on their debut trading day, blasting through analyst trade volume expectations. Eric Balchunas said on X that most new ETFs see around 1 million in trading volume, but the new crypto funds were no slouch, together seeing 54.7 million in trades over the day. Now, this was the first one, the first non-Ethereum, non-Bitcoin ETF outside of Solana, which actually did release in July. And Solana has accumulated not volume, but TVL of over 200-something million, which has boosted price a lot. And I think this will actually help all alt prices, but right now definitely help some XRP and Doge. Now, you might not see the effect immediately with that, but I think over time it will give it a little bit of a boost, just like Solana has received a boost, and it'll probably help with the bull run as well. And this paints a bright picture for October as other and more spot ETFs under the 1933 Act kind of like take hold. Balchunas added that the volumes were a good sign for the onslaught of crypto-related ETFs that are awaiting regulatory approval to launch. Issuers have filed dozens of crypto ETFs tied to the speculative altcoins or with novel instruments such as staking. The Rex Osprey XRP ETF, which tracks XRP, saw 37.7 million in volume, according to the data from Balchunas and CBOE, and this was the biggest day one in terms of monetary volume of any 2025 ETF launch out of 710 launches. Doge is also top 5. So that was pretty incredible. XRP was faster out of the gate, whereas Doge built up steam over the day. So in the first 24 hours, the first hour out of the gate, the XRP ETF took in $24 million in volume, and over the next 23 hours, it only took $13 million in volume, whereas Doge basically got about $6 million in volume in the first hour, and then over the course of the day got $11 million more volume. So Doge kind of cranked up over there, whereas XRP had a really strong start, then kind of petered off. But that still means that there's massive volume and demand for both these ETFs. Since it's both XRP and Doge, and it blew past analysts' expectations for both, that shows that people are underestimating by a huge amount how much demand for these ETFs. And of course, some people are afraid that since it's the 1940s ETF type and not the 1933 ETF type, this would dissuade investors, but it did not. So the XRPR and DOJE are registered under the Investment Company Act of 1940, the so-called 40 Act, and while the popular Bitcoin and other funds launched last year were under the Securities Act of 1933. Balchunas said early on Thursday that as both ETFs are registered under the 40s Act, it could diminish interest a bit relative to other crypto first evers, but that did not happen. Remember, the Solana ETF debuted under 1940s Act as well, and it has garnered a lot of attention. The 40s Act gives a faster approval window of 75 days compared to the 240 days from the 33 Act, but comes with certain limitations on what the ETF can hold. XRPR and DOGE don't directly hold crypto, but instead invest in Cayman Islands-based subsidiary that does. They also buy shares in foreign exchange traded products based in Europe and Canada that track XRP and Doge to try to track the asset's price. So it's a little bit different. It's kind of like a third-party way of doing it, but that doesn't matter because people were still interested in it. And this should give very, very bullish outlook for the pending crypto funds, Cardano, Hbar, everything else, as everyone knows that those spot ETFs will generate a good amount of volume and could definitely help the price. So extremely good news. Now, Solana just gets ever more good news. Ancient crypto prophet Cathie Wood is raising another multi-million-dollar fund for Solana. And this is like Solana's, I don't know like how many Solana has, but they have a lot right now. So it's ARK Invest. They want to do a $300 million treasury for Solana. According to a release published on Thursday, Barrera Holdings will rebrand to Soulmate. The company will serve as a Sol-based digital asset treasury and a crypto infrastructure entity. Pulsar Group, which is a UAE-based company, sponsored a $300 million PIPE that rebrands Barrera Holdings into Soulmate and brings in backing from ARK Invest and the Solana Foundation. The private investment in public equity PIPE oversubscribed, which shows that investor demand for Soulmate exceeded the $300 million target. Soulmate will accumulate and stake Solana's native token. The company will also build out a new crypto infrastructure in the UAE. The project expects to finalize a definitive agreement with the Solana Foundation. This is followed by a letter of intent that would give Soulmate a discount on Sol purchases. The release stated that Soulmate expects to enter into a definitive agreement following an already executed letter of intent with Solana Foundation, which would lower the entry price for the Solana accumulation. So basically, it's ARK Invest working with Soulmate, kind of a catchy name, I suppose, and they will try to get a 300 million Solana fund. Solana has like over $3 billion in committed money, by far the biggest corporate treasuries out of any non-Ethereum, non-Bitcoin alt. And of course, that bodes very, very well Solana. And the CEO of Soulmate said, Soulmate is not just another treasury. It will execute on a durably differentiated strategy in a crowded field and look like DATs by building real crypto infrastructure in the UAE. So they're planning to have like some kind of utility with this. I don't really care as long as they have like a Solana treasury. That means more Solana is going to be locked up, which is very, very good for us. So I'm very, very bullish on Solana and extremely bullish on Solana tokens. I'm kind of hoping that SNEC goes multi-chain on Solana because I think that would massively benefit the SNEC investors. Soulmate plans a dual listing on NASDAQ and the UAE exchanges, while advisors for the transaction include Cantor Fitzgerald and DLA Piper. So essentially, yes, they are doing another huge Solana fund worth $300 million. I think this brings the entire Solana treasury thing up to like 3.5 billion or something. And that is a lot of locked up Solana, which obviously reduces the overall supply of Solana. So that is really, really nice. In other news, PayPal is going to benefit SEI, Tron, and Layer 0 because they are expanding their stablecoin to SEI, Tron, and Layer 0. So PayPal expands PYUSD0 to SEI, Tron, Avalanche, and Aptos via Layer 0. PYUSD0 supply at 1.9 billion. I think that's going to expand, targeting DeFi, FinTech, and global payments. So PayPal is definitely expanding their product. It's issued by Paxos Trust, expanding through a permissionless version called PYUSD0. The rollout brings the stablecoin to SEI, Tron, Avalanche, and Aptos. We know that Tron makes its fame by trading USDT. Well, now it's going to trade another popular stablecoin. Obviously, nothing compared to USDT at this moment, but definitely it's good to actually grow. And obviously, with PayPal backing it, you want to be in on this game. According to Layer 0, PYUSD0 remains fully fungible with PYUSD, ensuring one-to-one redemption across supported chains. The expansion builds on PayPal's adoption of Omni-Chain Fungible Token Standard, designed to reduce liquidity fragmentation and improve cross-chain settlements. PayPal is positioning PYUSD0 to expand its reach across DeFi payments and FinTech applications while maintaining strict compliance With a supply of 1.9 billion, PYUSD remains smaller than USDT and USDC, but benefits from PayPal's global payment rails. So that's very, very good news overall. And of course, extremely good news that more corporate interests are taking note of the crypto industry. Have a little bit of trouble because Jerome Powell says the FOMC is actually divided on further rate cuts. That's not going to be a problem. I'll just send my Chuck Norris over there to roundhouse kick people in the face that do not agree with rate cuts. And there's no long-term consensus. I think it's really like 25 and 25, like 2 more cuts. And some people want more, some people want less, but I think the consensus is going to be 2 more cuts. So U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said the 19 members of the Federal Open Market Committee remain divided on additional interest rate cuts in 2025. At Wednesday's press conference after the Fed's 25 basis point rate cut, Powell said the central bank is trying to balance its dual mandate of maximum employment and price stability in an unusual environment where the labor market is weakening even as inflation remains elevated. You will have seen that we have 10 participants out of 19 who wrote down 2 or more cuts for the remainder of the year, and 9 who wrote down fewer than that. In fact, a good number of cases, no more cuts. But I do think 10 is still the majority, so we will actually get cuts. If we get no more cuts, market's not going anywhere, folks, so we definitely need those cuts. So yes, hopefully the 10 actually went out. Powell said the median FOMC projection from the Federal Reserve Summary of Economic Projections, the Fed's quarterly outlook for the U.S. economy that informs interest rate decisions, projected interest rates at 3.6% at the end of 2025, 3.64% by the end of 2024, and 3.1% at the end of 2027. So what this is telling us is we're going to get one more cut this year, possibly one or none next year, and then none the year after. But I don't think that's going to be the case because Powell is going to be out of here in May, and Trump's going to basically nominate his crony. And when his crony comes in, they're going to cut, and it's going to be like 1.4 by the end of 2026, which will trigger a big bull run followed by massive crash. So get out when that bull run actually happens. I would encourage people, as always, to look at SEP through the lens of probability, and so there are different possible outcomes and likelihoods rather than uncertainty, Powell said. Today's rate cut is the first of 2025 and brings the U.S. interest rate down to a range of 4 to 4.25. So basically 2 more this year, maybe 1 next year, and then none in 2027. But I really don't think that's actually going to work out. Obviously, there was one member who wanted 4 additional cuts, but that's not happening. But overall, hopefully the consensus and the majority actually win out on this, which I believe they actually will. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.